Doctors of Reddit. What are the dead giveaway signs that someone is faking? I went to emergency once with intense chest pain. The young, new doctor I saw first listened to my chest and immediately concluded I had pericarditis, but the supervising doctor decided I was faking it for drugs for some reason. The next morning I woke up to a psychologist in my room asking all sorts of random mess when an orderly interrupted because the ultrasound guy was in and wanted to see me first thing. I think after talking to the first doc I saw. Turns out I had pericarditis and myocarditis, and the dude wheeled me out himself and told them order an ambulance to take me to a hospital with a cardiac clinic. My hubs had pericarditis. That pain is no joke. Doc said he had it in med school and was the worst pain of his life. 15 hours, 8k debt, and they prescribed him ibuprofen 800. He has chronic stomach ulcers which he disclosed, but they insisted that was all they could do. So, pain from the pericarditis or pain from ulcers? You choose. Edit, a word. I had a 360 testicular torsion and a doc thought I just had some inflamed glands due to my reactions. Luckily I came back after they sent me home, or I would have lost my ball. 360 testicular torsion. Yeah, that's enough of this thread for me. I've never winced harder in my life than reading that phrase. The inverse of this question. What can someone do if they are not faking it, but for whatever reason they have multiple doctors insist they're faking it? But by never telling the patient they're faking it, nothing is ever resolved and it drags on for months and months. Find a different hospital. Don't transfer your medical history from previous doctors. Clean slate. I found an amazing endometriosis doctor recommended on Reddit. My primary care docs recommended my current ob/gen after my original ignored me saying I had vaginal bleeding for over a month and was in such extreme pain I could barely get out of bed. Within 5 minutes of talking to my new doc he told me he thought I might have endometriosis and we booked the surgery. Turned out I gave a pretty severe case of it and PCOS, with my left ovary being the same size as my uterus and was at risk of bursting. So glad I finally had a doc take me seriously after a decade. When I was pregnant I developed a cyst about the size of a golf ball on one of my ovaries. It was clear on the ultrasound. Doc said we'd keep an eye on it. Next ultrasound it was almost the size of a tennis ball and was causing discomfort in certain positions. He insisted there was no way I could feel it. Couple weeks later had insane amounts of pain and an intense burning sensation. Next ultrasound it was gone. To this day the man says it's impossible that I felt anything and that the cyst never popped, it just suddenly disappeared in less than a month. If I ever have another one, definitely not going with that hospital again. Some doctors I truly don't understand why they seem to be so dismissive of a patient's feelings and pain. 2 years ago I was so defeated by my pain that I legitimately felt suicidal and had to remind myself that hopefully this pain was temporary. My poor foolish thought. Thankfully with my second opinion, more like 7th in 10 years, finally getting me a diagnosis I was pain free for the first time I could ever remember. My pain is slowly returning as chronic incurable illness does, and the emotional impact of my diagnosis still deeply affects me. But I have so much more hope now that I know I can be in less pain and have found someone who takes me seriously. I pray you find a doc that will take you seriously, as well as cysts are so fucking painful and ignoring them can be fatal. I'm in the middle of being treated like I'm faking and it's really frustrating. I had a tool slip at work and hit me in the eye and forehead. Knocked me out for a second and I lost sight in my eye. An hour later I started getting my sight back, but it hasn't fully come back. It's been months now. 2 things I got diagnosed with were ocular migraines and vitreous detachment and a concussion. But none of those things explain why my vision is still blurry in my right eye, except the VD which causes floaters. But my issue is blurry vision. Like I have Vaseline in my eye, but doctors keep telling me I'm fine, that I need to go back to work. One doctor told me to think about the economy and that I was lucky to have a job right now, so I quit my job. I still want to see out of my right eye, but none of the doctors are taking me seriously. When I had a stroke 10 months ago my biggest fear was I was somehow faking it and the ambulance ride was a sham. And why was I doing it? No, it turns out I was having a stroke. I was so worried I was being a faker, although I have never done that before. Just a really odd mental state. This was me while going and in the earth anaphylaxis. I genuinely thought I was there for no good reason and that I was fine, despite my entire face being swollen and not being able to catch my breath. I kept apologizing to the nurses for wasting their time once I could breathe again. My favorite thing about this thread is that half of the "here's how you know they're faking" comments get responses that are all "yeah" about that. Let me tell you how that assumption fucked me over and I almost died. My sister is a pediatric audiologist and this is my favorite story of hers. Apparently, sometime in elementary school, usually the early grades, a ton of kids like to fake hearing loss. Like not just "oh, I can't hear the teacher," full on want to get hearing aids, etc. Anyway, she explained to me that, based on the way she plays the tones, you can usually tell if someone is faking, especially when they just pretend they can't hear anything. But it's not 100%, obviously, because hearing loss patterns can be really weird. However, she's caught a number of kids simply by saying, "Okay, so I'm going to play a random number of tones and they'll go in both ears. I want you to say "yes" if you hear it and "no" if you don't." I'm a nurse on a floor that deals with a lot of chronic and acute pain patients. Most recent instance was this lady from a few weeks ago that was apparently splitting the oxycodone we were giving her in half in her mouth, and then when the nurses' backs were turned, she would stuff it in a pill jar. A night nurse caught her in the act and all of her S had to be searched. We found 20 half tablets of oxycodone she had been stashing. She told us that she was saving them for her family in case they need them, because it's just so hard to get an oxycodone prescription these days. I had her a few days after that, and she was having some abdominal pain. Stat X-ray showed only gas. She just really needed to fart, but she was screaming, claiming it was a 10, and making a huge fucking scene. She demanded Dilaudid through her fourth, and she wanted it to be pushed fast. Huge red flag right there. She wanted the high, not the relief. Doc straight up said he wouldn't give her Dilaudid because she was already on so many opiates. She then demanded lorazepam, still through her fourth of course. Doc was like, "Fine, whatever. Just one time and only a low-end dose." I was flushing her fourth with normal saline first to make sure her fourth was patent, and she leans back and is like, "Oh, that's so much better already." Hadn't even given her the lorazepam yet. SMDH. For real though, gas pain is no joke. I was once rushed to the hospital car as I knew I couldn't afford an ambulance because I was doubled over in pain crying. I thought that something had ruptured or exploded. They weren't busy at all this night and got me back within 15 minutes of showing up. I don't like pills. Never have, because I know I had an addictive nature when it comes to substances, so I just avoid them altogether. So they do their test and scans and the doc comes in and tells me it's just severe gas buildup. I'm in tears still and ask the doc how the hell can gas cause this much pain and that it's gotta be something else. Doc says let me give you something, and if that doesn't work we can try something else. I'm like, okay cool, because no way gas hurts this much. 30 minutes later I'm in the bathroom like I just spent an hour at Taco Bell. The doc comes in to check on me when I finally manage a free moment. I can't help but look dumbfounded. Since they weren't busy at all, he sat down and explained that since I have IBS I need to be more careful with my intake or else this could happen again. All the while I felt like a complete dumbass because gas had me in tears. I thanked the document. He gave me some gas relief pills and suggested some diarrhea meds in case it happens again. I've never in my life been so sure it wasn't something only to be proven wrong. IBS can be a B. My first time experiencing it was at the first family day I joined with my then boyfriend. Terrible pain. We were thinking about going to the hospital because I was just bent double in the toilets. At one point I laid on my left side on the floor of the bathroom stall and the biggest fart comes out along with a huge relief. Everything was fine again and I felt super embarrassed. An X amount of time later I had to visit his GP with the same symptoms, but to be sure it wasn't an appendicitis. Again IBS. Since then I just assume it's IBS and take rest. Try to get my bowels to move, etc. Since my uterus and ovaries are shut down, it's way less, so probably they added to the IBS pain too. Get yourself a heating pad and drink hot water. Oh sweet baby Kthal, who does that help so much?